Today is called Put a Pin in It. Think about this idea. I heard Neil deGrasse say this in Masterclass. For those of you that listen to Masterclass, you should check that one out. If you're like a neuroscience and psychology nerd, check that one out. So here's what I got. I'm going to read my journal entry from the morning. And by the way, if you have a good journal entry and you want to share it, send it in to me. If you're going to get into the Rise Up Challenge and you want to send it in to me, I'll read it in your name, especially if it's sweet. So have you put a pin in the various life events, people, and happenings in your life? The idea of putting a pin in it. Do you actively put a pin in such things as you go through life today en route towards your future? Or are you in the practice, catch yourself, here's the drift, are you in the practice of accepting all things as you perceive them? Think about that. Do you accept everything for face value as you perceive them? What I'm inviting you to do is learn how to put a pin in it. See, when we move through life accepting everything as we perceive and receive them, we miss out on the opportunity to reevaluate them from a different time in the future through the lens of a different, more conscious, more evolved version of yourself. Imagine what it would be like to go back into your past that you claim can't be changed and view it through the perspective of the lens that you carry today. Interesting concept. You'll hear that in my book. So we unconsciously accept the happenings that we see, the way that it was perceived by you at the time. That's the challenge. Yet we can validate it as actually happened, or we can't validate that it's actually happened, or just how that version of you perceived it. See, that's what's interesting about this thought today of putting a pin in it. The things that you see and you perceive, whatever you assume, comes from this perception that we have. So whatever you perceive is being perceived by that version of you. But if you put a pin in it and come back to it later, maybe even at the end of the day when things have cooled off. So not to overlook the non-commitment to accepting how things may have happened to you and the value of you not carrying the angst as a victim of those things. How many things have happened in your past or even yesterday, and you're continuing to carry the angst of a victim of it happening to you? Or perhaps harboring anger and the desire to strike back or blame or justify, and all of these non-responsibility, versions of yourself. So do you know what a crazy wall is, right? This is one of my favorite things to look at. I have one on my wall. A crazy wall is basically this wall, usually a corkboard, full of pictures that detectives interconnect with pins and red yarn in an attempt to make sense and solve a crime. That's what a crazy wall is. Sometimes they call it an evidence board, but for the most part, I'd say it's a crazy wall. So this is basically, I see life as one big crazy wall. Think about your life right now, and you think about the idea of having this crazy wall. And it's all going to make sense down the road when you have the ability to reevaluate it through a more experienced lens and connect all the pins. See, I think a crazy wall can turn into an evidence board once you have the ability to have a more conscious, evolved mind and check the facts. So when that thing arises, here's my gift to you today. When that thing arises today that triggers your stress response system, which is unavoidable and out of your control, and that thing just triggers those feelings that might even turn into thoughts and emotions. Those things are, for the most part, out of your control. But when that happens today, I want you to practice the idea of putting a proverbial pin in it today and look at your life as a curious exploration and adventure that will make sense one day down the road. Let yourself off the hook of knowing everything. But today doesn't need to be that day. So put a pin in it, and then move on to your great morning. Does that make sense? So that's all I got for you today, my friends. So hopefully you'll join me in the Rise Up Challenge, and I'll see you tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. Eastern.